This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, that's a good start. So you're set. There won't start recording. And get it rolling. Okay, you are recording. Oh, everyone can hear me? Let me know you can hear me. Yes, no? No.
There's some pixelation, but we'd love to hear from you.
Interesting recording going for this. Welcome to the Technology Review Council. Okay. I'm gonna just turn this over to you, Michael, for WhatFix. And I'll thank the technology audience if I can figure out how to get my headset back on. But go for it. You are the man.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yourself.
Excellent. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Adam Michelson from WhatFix here. I'm based in New York, have a deep domain expertise in law and education policy, and I work for a software company. And Nova and I connected late June, early July about currents in human resources in learning and development. And he thought that some of the trends that we see as a software company, some of the capabilities that we have, some of the visibility that we have to organizations, both private sector, public sector, might be interesting to this group of people. And we're happy to take on any questions that you might have. I have kind of a point of view of all of the work that we've been doing with WhatFix. It's digital adoption platform and how we drive adoption of software. And I'd like to take a bit of a walk here and show you really what our point of view is, how we help with the employee experience, customer experience. I've been in software for 10 years. Before that, I worked with educators and school districts as a lawyer. I'm really glad to take this time with you. I am just looking at time in general here, and it looks like we have the better part of this hour, and I will not take it all. I'm happy to make this a dialogue toward the end. I'll take about 10 or 15 minutes to talk about where we are in our point of view, and then start talking about how our software could be beneficial in different scenarios. So we live in a world of software. Some people say that software's eating the world, that it is so prevalent that we really can't get away from it. Some of it's easy to use, some of it isn't, but one thing can be sure, more software begets, bear with me one moment here, more complexity. So we see some logos here, some large software companies, and in organizations with HR, but across organizations and with employee experience, there just means a lot more complexity. The reason why there's complexity is not only are people buying more software that's specific to a group or a function, not only are people changing roles and coming in and out of a company or an organization, and thus their relationship to the software changes, but you begin to see here, there are so many softwares that don't talk to each other. They don't have a relationship to one another. In fact, a lot of them compete with each other. That's despite us needing to use them interchangeably, representing our company or representing our function. So we see regularly that people are getting new software, the software doesn't talk to one another, that all of these logos actually compete for our attention for whatever reason. And then people's roles change and companies and organizations' processes change for a lot of reasons. All of that's pretty complex. That's really part of our problem statement, what we see in the market happening more and more. And these softwares take on a bunch of different flavors, and it's really hard to categorize them. We make an attempt just to make any sort of sense of them. We focus more ourselves in what the software was before when there's an end user experience involved. We're not talking about coding or making software, and we're not talking about like mainframes or anything that like doesn't have a user interface. And they take these 5 flavors. There's productivity in HR, that might be a human capital management or application tracking system. Productivity in a sales organization can be a CRM. productivity in a manufacturing company might be an enterprise resource planning software, an ERP. There's also these other ones: customer experience, collaboration, data analytics, reporting and forecasting. Softwares for all of these. 700 softwares plus in multi-thousand person organizations. So that sounds kind of crazy. That means that there could be like 3 people for each different software that a company uses. That, again, gives some magnification to the issue here. These softwares are built for different reasons. They have different priorities. And again, they're competing in a landscape that we may not have visibility to. Here we see Workday, Oracle, Salesforce, large players, but also more niche players that focus on really narrow sorts of work. Again, they don't speak to one another. But what are 3 emerging trends or themes in HR that we track to, that we're seeing some leaders in HR and that interface with software might focus on? One is human-centered self-service, right? How do we make people do their best work? How do we empower them to do their best work? Well, that's not by putting roadblocks in place. That's by focusing on individual or specific groups of people and how they can do their own work, self-service, get other people out of the way of their best work. We also have seen themes about design inclusivity. We call it inclusive design is how I word it. And how I'd like to articulate it for this audience is designing for 100% of learners. So we can't know how everyone learns. We can't presume or project or put people into some sort of learning pathway that is not necessarily designed for all sorts of learners. So my query from that is, how might we design more thoughtful and contextualized content and learning experiences for all types of learners? We have answers to that question, but I just want to say that it's not necessarily the learner or the software or the content, it's all of it. And what we just want to focus on is outcomes. Make sure that people know how to do what they're supposed to be doing at work. And then something emergent, I think, from a macroeconomic landscape perspective, and just something for us to keep in mind, is something I'm calling intergenerational transmission. How to capture best practices. Intergenerational may be generation based on time, or generation based on like iPhone generation, which is to say like more advanced. So how might we have all learners and all employees function or work the way that top learners or most advanced employees function? And these are really interesting to me. And these are questions that we help organizations answer along with thought leaders, consultancies, systems integrators. We're a software company, and we think about the software experience, or what we call the software journey of other softwares. And in 2023, that is synonymously called digital transformation. So digital transformation is a buzzword of the time. Sorry, I'm not sure if if you might want to come on in. I heard a chime or something. Feel free to move me if you want. Okay, I'm gonna keep going.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
That is, that's a problem in its own right, what's been solved. Thank you very much.
Sure.
When you and I talked last time, this slide really is an important thing, and I wanted to just kind of draw the audience's perspective to this, that, you know, the digital transformation, we've heard this for a while, and people are just, you can look at all kinds of opinions on it. But really, what you're really doing is you're trying to move an organization, its workforce, its habits, its information, if you will, into a platform that is usable. Your point about transgenerational, we have 5 generations working on some of those courses. So I looked at this slide as being a very important one, and I just want to draw that to the attention, because WhatFix does overlay this entire digital transformation journey, and can very interestingly accelerate it, if you will, in my mind. So anyway, so I just put it out there, and that's my excuses.
Thank you,
Go
Noah.
for that. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. And just to amplify what Nov said, he focused on workforce transformation, right? The digitizing nature of work, and this being something that happens in a lot of a lot of different industries. And when we help with this journey, and we really appreciate this chance to articulate more of our value to this journey. The right side of this slide actually articulates points from Forbes and Gartner that talk about the failure of digital transformations. And that's I'd say a pretty bold word to use, but the idea is whether or not the investment put toward a transformation matches or exceeds the promise. If you look on the left side, there's actually a marcation of reality in the red in the bottom and the promise on the top. It's possible that digital transformations may have the promise of positive return on investment, of positive transformative change in an organization. But there are a lot of pit stops and a lot of issues that we think focus on end user experience and adoption that may get in the way. So digital transformation is a journey. There's always the go live that the business owner and the technologist may be focusing on. It's when we flip the switch and everyone starts using it. But that is a finite moment in time. It's a granular moment in time. And all of the work related to that goes before and after it. And so we like to advocate for the fact that go live is just an idea, and we really have to be along for this entire journey in order to unlock the value of all of the work that people have been doing. Something I've learned over the course of my time with WhatFix is that if you're thinking about a large software transformation, you're going to need potentially 50 to 80% more people than you have right now toward that project. Put a different way, if I'm a subject matter expert in an organization's application or like recruitment in an HR function, and we bring in a new software, 50 to 80% of my time is going to go toward the software development. Even though I'm not a coder, it's literally what is the processes and the experience that's going to happen. So, that's another reason why some of these projects fail, is because the planning doesn't take into account the people and the project itself. We help with that, but I just want to unpack these 5 pit stops because they're really potent. One is before the fact. Testing is a really, really big element in these software transformations. Does it work? Does it work the way we want it to? Does it work for our people? But it's called user acceptance testing, because it doesn't matter if it like objectively works, it needs to work for your organization. So you'll need your employees to make sure that it works for them. It doesn't work out of the box. Actually, nothing works out of the box. Everything needs to be adapted or changed to your organization, and testing is incredibly important. Getting insights back from how the software is running and how people interact with it, also really important. Just want to point out these 4 other steps here. One is when employees are coming onto that software, what is their first experience? How are things being presented to them? How much training goes into that for them to do the work that they need to do? 3 more, just-in-time help. So how do we guide an individual through a process or through a question or through a problem when they don't know? Because we forget a ton of the stuff, or the process changes or the software changes. So there's always going to be a need for just-in-time help. Learning in the flow of work is another way that that's described. There will always be new functional releases of the software, maybe 8 times a year even. And if there's 700 of them, I just did the math, that's 5,600 updates a year to 700 applications, which is mind-numbing. How do we signal change when it's business critical? Really important to be able to do. And then process optimization. How do we learn from what's worked and what hasn't, and then drive more of that learning for the 100%? How do we drive more intuitive but also progressive uses of these software over time? We think that we address all of these sorts of concerns. Our software is a digital overlay. It's gonna pop to a new slide in a moment, I hope. I might have clicked too many times. Let's see what happens. Digital overlay that sits on top of any application. We're running, I said, it's funny, I said that average organizations have 700 different types of applications. We actually are currently installed on roughly 700 different types of applications across large enterprise, even small nonprofit. And our goal is to have an experience layer that speaks to your employees, that shows them what they should be doing, and it be intuitive along the way. The goal is to maximize business outcomes or your investments and minimizing technology complexity, right? You don't need to learn an nth user interface. What if we adapt that interface with an overlay that makes it more your voice, your branding, and your experience? And that's the promise and the delivery of digital adoption platforms, which we lead in. Some of our clients are across a lot of different industries, a lot of public sector and nonprofit also that I work with. My focus is when there's a partner involved, when there's subject matter expert involved, we're going to bring our solution jointly to, again, large enterprise all the way down to 100, multi-hundred person organizations. Sorry, Nov, was there something you might wanted to add there?
No, I do have a kind of a general question, and maybe this kind of further down your presentation. But so, as you say, we are working in environments today with multiple platforms. Even in HR, let's say I have a recruiting platform. As a recruiter, I'm going to log in there, and I need to make sure that the person gets moved over to the system because we haven't built an interface, or we don't have an API that immediately takes it. So, what I think the answer should be, and I suspect you thought of that, is that if I had WhatFix sitting on my recruiting platform and WhatFix sitting in my onboarding, I could teach that same recruiter with the same experience how to move this across two different platforms and still make them a very useful user of both those platforms without changing them and changing the how to log in, how to do this. I mean, literally, I find many of my clients have got, we have a person who is administering the system across, 3 or 4 different platforms, and today Nova is doing this in recruiting, and tomorrow he's doing this over here in this HR system, and oh, by the way, he's doing data analytics over here. It's a bit of a mishmash, but I suspect with WhatFix, I could actually, I guess I'll call it, bond them all together for one user across these platforms easily.
Yeah. Yep. And speaking like to the breaking the fourth wall here, so organizations pay for all of these platforms, and then you continue to be marketed to by these platforms, right? They're not working interchangeably for your business, they're wanting more of your business. So with WhatFix, you can create that digital experience layer that I showed, it kind of sits on top, and it's a piece of glass that you get to put whatever you want on it. So here's Salesforce with a piece of glass on it that grays out the entire screen and gives me a welcome. Here's a Workday instance that looks relatively similar to that. Now, we've put these demos together with their branding, but you'll see now across 3 platforms, this is a contract lifecycle management software that'll load up in a moment. It will have a similar experience. So there's the contract lifecycle management, and what pops up on screen, bear with me one moment, it's just loading again, is an individualized experience for the organization, right? So should load up entirely, still loading one of its elements. There we go, right? So now you see, it's not just a video description on the top, it's your brand, right? We're showing Workday because we're showing how we help with Workday adoption. We're showing Salesforce because we show how we're helping with Salesforce adoption. But if your organization has a brand scheme or a reason for being, you can put a video of your CEO welcoming people the first time they're in, or creating content for the last week of the year, wishing everyone a happy end of year and a great year together, right? So you're able to see that this is a content delivery mechanism that sits on top of any application and makes it easier to use. One thing that we really help with is time to value with new employees. So instead of them learning in a training room or environment or needing to go through specific modules, We send them to the platform itself. We do a lot across a lot of different industries. In insurance, we work with claims adjusters regularly, and instead of them taking 30 days to go through all of the training, they now take 3, and they're learning on the application of record. And how are they learning? Well, with, as I said, just-in-time guidance. So what you'll see on your screen is what I should be doing next. And I don't need to know anything about this platform. All I need to know is that it's telling me what to do. You'll be seeing these different prompts that come up on your screen about what I should be doing. And this one is telling me to advance through changing my password or registering or whatever the first process is that I should be completing. When I finish it, and this is all no code programmable, you type and then save and then launch these walkthroughs is what we call them. We get feedback that was easier with the guidance. So you might say, that's nice, but what if I already know how to use Salesforce? Well, we've got functionality meant for experienced users. One is what we call a task list on the bottom left. This bottom left task list is something that WhatFix uses regularly for our Salesforce. When we release new product features on our product, or when your organization may advance its offerings, you can show people what's different using task list on whatever application. So Salesforce's task list, which we added, includes information related to updates in our offering, which means that I'm learning about what's new for me on my job on the platform of record. And that's typically done in a third place. It's done maybe in a live webinar. Now I don't have to go anywhere else. It's given to me or shown to me when it's new on the platform. So I'm learning in the flow of work. And this can be video, it can be hyperlinks, it can be whatever content you already have or want to develop. And that's really potent because you're then not taking people, quote unquote, out of work. They're doing the work while working. There's some advanced functionality that we're really happy about. Just want to show 2 or 3 of those points. This is Salesforce, but the same functionality exists on Workday. Every single thing that you just saw can be applied to any platform. And we also, as Nova alluded to, is we work across platforms. So if you have your applicant tracking system speaking to your HRIS platform independently, we can guide people from step 3 to step 5 across 2 different platforms. And that's something that we do regularly out of the box, no coding, right? So always on the screen on the right side is what we call Selfhelp. And Selfhelp is an index of any content that helps. It's related to who I am, where I am, and what I've done before. Super smart. So here we're on the opportunity section of Salesforce. Everything in there says opportunity or is related to opportunities. It's also ranked by how I and my colleagues have accessed this information before. So this decreases what we call knowledge discovery time. If we're able to drive people to the work they need to do faster, they're going to complete it better and faster. They're going to be more efficient. Instead of them asking someone or submitting a ticket, we're just going to make the information most relevant to them on the screen. Really powerful. This can integrate with your SharePoint, with your knowledge repository, with your LMS, with your learning modules, with your ticketing system. Our idea is being additive. So if you say, hey, we already got something that we built, WhatFix works with it. We work with, like I said, 700 applications already. So Selfhelp's one of those 3 functionalities. Wanted to drill down here. You'll see I'm guided to making a form, right? This says create an opportunity, but in any sort of interface, you're going to be working with forms. I don't want to reduce everything that we do to forms, but we're putting in data. And if you look on the right side, it says fill the details, mandatory fields are marked with red asterisk. So we're not really telling people what to do in which order. and we're not really showing that step-by-step guidance in a way that might like help them quote unquote finish faster with the step-by-step guidance. But where we do help is we just did a lot of things behind the scenes. So WhatFix helps with data hygiene, data governance, and data accuracy. One way we do that is by pre-filling data fields. So these three that are lit up yellow were pre-selected by a WhatFix author or content creator so that it makes people do their work more efficiently. Because whenever I create a new opportunity, it should have these 4 fields filled out. So instead of me as an end user or 1,000 of my colleagues as all end users doing this every time, we've made it easier. So we can pre-fill fields. We can also validate content in the field. So it says, please enter only numerics. So me, I have an order form that says GH567. And then when I go to the rest of my experience here, it turns red. And it actually says, please enter only numbers. That's WhatFix. That red thing that showed up, WhatFix. We're able to give logical rules to the data fields, which is really important because this prevents errors. Errors take people, they take time and energy down the road. If we can go to the source of when the information is put in and help guide people without them needing to know what to do, well, we've created less digital friction, and we've gotten to helping all those different types of learners by signaling in the moment that they need it, instead of testing them whether they remember what what an order number is.
Adam, there's a question out there from Roy, and I think it's a good one. He's saying, is there a data model behind the form itself that is sitting there? So in a sense, you're gathering the inherent fields that the platform brings to the table, and you're using those within the context of the WhatFix flow, so that terminology is the same, values are the fact that you're trying to help ensure data integrity right off the bat is a huge plus. But if you could answer the question, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I think that the solution is really elegant because it literally is just this. It's just sitting on top of this form. WhatFix has a bunch of patents. We can detect user interfaces really well. We can't detect the underlying data, but we can detect the interface. So we're working with the federal government, with healthcare companies and insurance companies not reading their data. We're reading the user interface. So that means that we're able to make content more quickly and more accurately connected to it. And that's just by virtue of an algorithm that we have that knows that this is a field and that's a field descriptor, opportunity name. And so we just know where the buttons are, our software knows where the buttons are. And when you create the content, it sticks to it. And then whenever anyone else goes to that spot, the same information is overlaid on it. So we don't need to know, and it's not an integration. It's literally point, click, type, save, and publish. And that's how you get this content on screen, which is one of the ways that I think that the software is really powerful. You don't need to code. You don't need to have any real expertise or skills in order to make it. It's more just thinking about what's easier for the user.
Do you mind if I ask a very quick question, Adam? So, as you mentioned, we got lots of people on a project. Who's kind of the best kind of skill sets to put in charge of making WhatFix work? Is that an end user, a learning expert, or a technical person?
Great question. So in our larger clients, we're focused on adoption as a new functional area. So there might be a technical area, there might be a business area, and there might be a learning area. And those 3 areas don't really speak to one another very, I'd say, fluently. And what I love to do inside of learning and development groups inside of our clients is for them to lead conversation with business owner and technical owner and be able to think about this more holistically. So to answer your question, someone with a learning and development background, an instructional designer, could be really powerful to understand what does a learner need to know in these moments in order for them to have the best outcomes or for them to do their work efficiently. So an instructional designer, while important, can be just a subject matter expert on the process or the software. So subject matter expert or instructional designer, I'd say, is one. And then number two is an analyst or author or content creator. And that person can have a lot of different skills, but if you can create standard operating procedures, or if you can create a PowerPoint, you can create content with WhatFix. And that's not I'd say an advanced technological skill set, but we do have certifications. We do have training that's included in our engagements, so that if anyone wants to learn how to author the content or focus on the instructional designer solutioning, as we might call it, those are really great. And then I just say if there's a third type of person, it's a project manager. We're having a go live of a new software in 5 months' time, and we want someone to organize the rollout of the new software with WhatFix or a digital adoption platform on it. And project manager is really the one who's setting up all of the pieces. I'll just say that we work really closely with technologists, and so if there are design or technology sprints, we work regularly with design or technology sprints where this content follows after the user experience content being created or the user experience design being finished. Nova, I answered that pretty long-winded. Is that?
No, it's a beautiful answer. And in fact, I learned something of the process rarely if I've been in the middle of an HCM project. A learning expert, an instructional design person being part of the team, unless we're doing a learning management system, which is a rarity once in a while. I have to congratulate Wanda for asking what is a great question here. He said, does it matter whether you have a SaaS product versus a licensed or on-premises product? For your disparate or integrated systems? And I know what the answer is, but I'd love to have you say it.
Sure. So if there's a user interface like this, we can work on it. Web, desktop, mobile. It includes on-premise, and we're already deployed across all of these different types of software. While Salesforce has a lot of guidance, homegrown or completely custom platforms don't. So we work really well when there isn't like baseline knowledge behind a platform. And when there's an advanced design platform like Workday, what we're thinking about is more on what I would call performance support. So I just want to take this conversation in another direction for a moment. Bear with me one moment. I'm looking for a slide as I do regularly. So when you think about work, and maybe I'm oversimplifying a little bit, there is an intended outcome that we're always driving for, whether it's hiring someone, onboarding a new employee, closing a deal, solidifying a project in an ERP, getting a contract out in a contract lifecycle management platform. There's an outcome. And there are steps or clicks or dependencies that come before it. With WhatFix, we can change any one of those processes into a funnel. And this is part of our analytics offering. Our analytics can boil down your processes, whatever they are, I just named a bunch of them, into a function of success over time, or as this one shows, drop off and slowness and friction and not completion over time, right? This shows you that 17 people finished what 33 people attempted. And there may be a lot of reasons for why this drop off occurred. But we can't know, and we can't advance this improving just by luck or hope or by having a webinar. What we do with WhatFix is not only do we understand how people are moving through the underlying platform, so that's the applicant tracking platform, that's the Salesforce platform, whatever it is, we're getting feedback from those platforms of record of how people are doing or transacting their work. But then you can create content for the specific people who are having the problems. So With WhatFix, you can create really narrow cohorts based on the user's role, based on specific parameters of their work in the platform. And one of the most potent ones is based on where they got gummed up last time. So those eight people you can create an automatic cohort and content that pops up just for them when they leave step 1 before they get to step 2. And what that enables you to do is to have a very concentrated message that says, best practice here is, or pop up a video, or showing the specific policy guide on screen for that moment. It's content delivery exactly when someone needs it. And what goes on screen is to try and push them to act more proactively toward the outcome. And what ends up happening here is what I like to call continuous improvement. This funnel, done right, used correctly, should be straight across, no drop off over time. But we can compare and A/B test content to help drive people toward those outcomes. This is super powerful because there might be process mining software out there, but it doesn't guide people on what they should be doing next. That's where subject matter experts and instructional designers and our software come together to create an experience exactly when people had trouble for next time that makes them not have trouble. And that's really fun. And I think proactive to be able to guide people through a better experience the next time around.
I'm seeing a comment here as well. So this would have been awesome for the recent federal I-9 re-verification mandate. So,
yep.
You know, you're again, I'm trying to point out something that just glaringly says, I have yet to see somebody buy or license a subscribe to a new system and not use the configuration tools to change it to meet their needs.
Right.
So I have seen people spend an inordinate amount of time after the fact, like you say, in implementation, documenting the process that people can continue to use the system effectively, hoping that they're going to reduce the amount of time being spent processing. You know, we thought we were going to save time and money and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
WhatFix apparently addresses that at the outset, prior to the implementation, and continuing to do the process improvement as it's going. So we don't need to necessarily document on a piece of paper what the processes are. I'm doing it in the system right here. And it's probably a continuous improvement. Hey, no, found a faster way to do a new hire. Tell me how you do it. Put it in the system and ever it is. But I just want to bring that to the surface because, again, we spend a lot of time. Documentation is the last thing we like to do, sort of testing, and it's usually forgotten. And you are solving that problem and you're making it ubiquitous as part of the system.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Anyway, sorry about it. We have got about another 15 minutes. I'd love to be able to say that we could open up the floor to, but I would want you to show the analytics, the adoption analytics metrics that you provide, which is just phenomenal. Anybody who's in this crowd that measures the success of a system implementation should be worried about one thing and one thing only: adoption. So go for it.
Certainly. Okay, thank you for this. I'll just add, right, like we like to think that adoption is a journey, and when people see the power of platforms like this, they think about it more from an enterprise or organization-wide perspective. How do we increase the speed and accuracy of our digital transformation is the big question. But also, how do we increase adoption where there isn't necessarily a good story right now? So just to precise, we regularly get brought into conversations or relationships where they've implemented something 6, 12, 18, 24 months ago. And instead of ripping out and replacing it just because people aren't doing great with it, they have a reassessment. And they might bring in subject matter experts in that field, and they might look for solutions that can help drive their adoption. So it could just be in experiences that have not gotten the love or adoption that people might have expected from those platforms or those investments. So I'm happy to go live to our dashboard. And so what you're going to see load up is where all of this content is created from. Oh, and we've got WhatFix on there, and it's telling me what's new at WhatFix. This is not planned, but I just want to show you one thing. We talked about analytics, Nov gave you that segue. I talked about funnels just now, how everything's a funnel, and something that we just came up with and we're signaling the change of on WhatFix is now we can compare funnels on the same analytics view over time. So that means that we can now A/B test over time whether or not those funnels are improving based on new WhatFix content being added. Really powerful. You see here we now offer our dashboard in German. Our software auto translates our the guidance into 80 languages, but now we have that in German, and we have a bunch of release notes that show all of the new releases that came with Q3, release 1. You see we're updating our software, and we're also using WhatFix best practices in order to signal that change. So now I know that, and you know that, and I don't have to have a meeting about that, and that's great. I'm just empowered. Thanks, Nov. That was impromptu. I didn't know that was coming. But now you see on your screen what we would call analytics of adoption. And this is all data that comes back from how people are interacting with that guidance layer. So how many unique people are being presented with that guidance information? How many workflows or walkthroughs are being triggered by those people? The different engagements over time. We also have the most popular flows or the actions that they've taken, really powerful. And bear with me one moment. I'm just going to another area here. The self-help was that area that comes out from the side. You see here how many times people started specific pieces of content or help, but also what they searched. So we have unsuccessful and successful search terms here on the right. Something that I love about WhatFix is you can get back what people searched for that failed. It failed to bring back a search or a successful search. So there might be a new product, right? There might be a new offering. Like let's say like your employees want to learn more about AI. And AI is a subject that your learning and development group just put together a seminar on, but a lot of people couldn't attend it. They can search for your content on the software that they're using, on the Workday. And then because I said we could pull in content from anywhere, you can put that content exactly where they're working. And so you can understand trends of what people are asking for and then add content to answer their questions. What's great about that is they stop asking you or tech support those questions. And if we can automate and create more self-service opportunities, then people are going to be more efficient and more empowered to be doing their work themselves. That's one of the outcomes or hopes that we try to bring to clients that we work with. And I'll just say that I've been speaking in terms of very broad generalities. Those generalities speak to functionality that we offer very broadly. I just want to bring us back to kind of two more points. One is that I said we work across industries, and the use cases that we have across those industries vary substantially. So what we might be doing for Shell with their procurement platform is entirely different than what we're doing for NASA or AutoZone. But all of these organizations have an HR function. All of them have some sort of thing that they're selling or managing the product ecosystem. And also there can be like the supply chain that arrives at that. So these themes create those hundreds of applications. And the way that we can help with them is really focused not on the adoption of Salesforce, it's on doing better with sales, not on the adoption of Workday, but doing better with the hire to retire or benefits enrollment or whatever the work is that you're trying to do, because the software is then not in the way of the reason why you bought the software. That's really powerful for me. I just want to say what's at stake here. We had I'd say a champion recently give us specific verbiage that like resonates in my head over and over. I'm just going to read it out loud so I feel complete. When WhatFix might be right for your client or your organization, WhatFix gets you out of a reaction mode of being inundated by new functions on new products. It gives you more of a sense of analyzing capabilities gaps and analyzing gaps in training. And with WhatFix, you gain time analyzing training and user feedback from it because you're not pushing content for new product functionality. With that, you have time to analyze this feedback, recognize where you can make more training, and then make better training with WhatFix. And without WhatFix, organizations don't really have space for that because of how frequently things are changing. With WhatFix, you do. And we're happy to help answer individualized questions, how we might help with your adoption journey. Digital adoption platforms are a big up and coming software category. I'll leave you lastly, don't take my word for it. Gartner recently named digital adoption solutions as the #1 most impactful workplace software that's out there out of 40. You see it's numbered 1. And this is because it's feasible, not very expensive, and has a lot of business value, which we can help you calculate. And I'm happy to get into why Gartner has taken this stance or what we do to show our value. I just want to pause, seeing we're 5 minutes from the top of the hour. Nov, where might we else want to go? I don't see the questions on screen, forgive me.
I do, I'm tracking right now. I certainly would say, if anybody's got a question, please go ahead and open up your mic. I am going to inundate you with 3 perspectives real quickly. Number 1, I heard you talking about the fact that you're going to have terminology and you're searching where somebody said, I'm looking for XYZ, and now we call it something completely different. So I can start, in a sense, standardizing the data governance and terminology that my users are going to use, and then I start talking that same language, which I love. That data governance aspect of standardization across the organization is phenomenal. That's number 1. I can see, in finance we call it, paid compensation, and over here we call it salary, and yet we're looking at the same thing. It's an aggregate form. The other one is, I do believe a byproduct of this particular tool allows the hybrid workforce to work more productively, as opposed to having to be locked in the office and then talking in the lunchroom. How do you do a new hire? Because I can't seem to get it right. So in a sense, you're actually adopting and allowing us to stay in the hybrid workforce and maybe remote work a little longer and maybe a lot more adaptable to what we should be doing. You're addressing productivity. And then I've got to ask this question. You're a SaaS organization. You've got lots of clients. Are you working with any of the vendors to tell them, hey, Workday, your compensation management module seems to have the most difficulty in your user community based on what fixes clients are using Workday? In other words, are you giving them stats back to say, hey, guys, in the aggregate, this is a horrible piece of process that you put together. People have problems with it. Is that on your roadmap somewhere?
Okay, got that. So before I forget, I just want to go to my last slide, just so you know, we are going to be at, sorry, let's see, where's the slide?
Oh,
we're going to be at HR Tech. I think it's here. No, I didn't get it right. Goodness, bear with me 1 moment. There's a slide that shows we're going to be at HR Tech. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to
say that you are on to take my tour group. For the IRO members out there, we have a tour group at HR Tech. We're having work, and we'll be in front of Adam or whomever is there at WhatFix in a private demo.
So no, to answer your question, I've been talking to you and everyone here to help a company, to help organizations with their adoption journey and the purchases that they make or the systems that they work with. We also work with software companies themselves. So Icertis, Contract Lifecycle Management, Microsoft, bullhorn application tracking software, we help with the adoption of those platforms. So we are engaged with them to help their clients move quickly in adopting the processes that are important to their businesses. And we're able to give them feedback for how organizations are struggling. They're able to understand that there's problem. Really important. I just see Bruce here.
Yeah. How's the solution price? Who is your target customer? At what level? And how is internal governance handled?
Yeah. So my dear colleague calls our value derivative to the underlying platform's value. So because we're helping the adoption or training on the underlying platform, we need to be priced accordingly. So we'll take that into consideration. We'll take into consideration the underlying application and the number of users on it. And that's how we'll arrive at our yearly pricing. Our idea is that we add more value over time because people are adopting and using our platform to build more momentum for their work at Core over time. And we're here to evangelize that adoption. So included with our licenses is you having unlimited training and support on how to best use our platform and learn from all of the hundreds and hundreds of clients that we've worked with already, so that the core work is adoption, and the core work is advancing the priorities or strategic initiatives inside your organization.
Great. And his question about who's your target customer, in other words, what level and what role are you going after? CHROs, CIOs? Because you are a system agnostic tool, I suspect the technology side of the house might be more prudent, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say like as like the most of one category typically has a learning or development remit where they're thinking about training, learning in the flow of work, change management, best practices for software adoption. And when they're coming across those sorts of requests or interests, we've created a lot of subject matter expertise and content on that. So that's one core group. I'd say second is a business owner or a product owner that's thinking about the efficiency or the work that their employees or user base is focused on. And then we also have folks with an IT remit that are thinking about how software can speak to other softwares better. How do we get cross application connectivity without, like building a one-of-a-kind machine in a room somewhere? We do that really well.
Outstanding. Any further questions for Adam? No, we are at the top of the hour. I think a couple of folks have other places to be. Adam, I can only say thank you. This is the third time we've had this conversation, and I learn every time you speak. So thank you very much. And again, as a reminder, if you're going to be at HR Technology conference in Las Vegas, not a bad place to be in October, please stop by WhatFix or come see the Iron booth and see us. And we'll take you over to WhatFix. So thank you again for a very outstanding presentation. I think there's a lot of value, So, all righty. Well, thank you again. I'm going to stop the recording here, and Adam, take good care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Nov.